We are honored to host eminent experts from Japan, Taiwan, Portugal, Thailand, Nepal, New Zealand, Myanmar, and across India. Thank you for gracing this international gathering aimed at advancing climate resilience, disaster mitigation, infrastructure safety, and public health research in Asia. To commence this ceremony with utmost pride and dignity, may I request everyone to kindly stand in the name of nation for our national song, Vande Mataram. Thank you. Please be seated. In India, we begin all our ceremonies by lighting a lamp. Hence, we shall now begin with the auspicious lighting of the lamp, symbolizing knowledge, wisdom, and the collective resolve to work for a safer and resilient world. May I invite our distinguished dignitaries to kindly join for the lamp lighting.
सेतु तुषारहार धवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रावृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युतशङ्कर प्रभृतिभिः देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेषजाड्यापहा.
So by lighting this lamp today, we share a glimpse of India's culture and tradition that wishes enlightenment and harmony for everyone present here. Om Deep Jyoti Parabrahma, Deep Jyotir Janardana, Deepo Hartu Me Papam, Deep Jyotir Namastate, meaning, O light of the lamp, you are the supreme Brahman. You are the remover of all the sins. I bow to the lamp at twilight. May this dispel darkness and bring knowledge. Thank you, esteemed guest. I now invite Dr. Ajay Chaurasia, Organizing Secretary, to provide an overview of Ohow 2025.
Thank you. Good morning and very warm welcome to everyone. Respected Professor Kinro Megro, Dr. Krishna Vatsa sir, Professor C.V.R. Murthy sir, Professor R. Pradeep Kumar ji, Professor Bataru Tekuji, Dr. Kajale, Dr. L.P. Singh, my dear brothers and sisters in this Surya Hall. Our participants joining from Prithvi, Jal and Vayu halls and more than 3,000 well-wishers connected online. A very special welcome to all of you. We are deeply privileged to have with us Professor Kimro Migro, a global icon in disaster engineering. Sir, your work has protected lives across the continents, and the world looks to Japan for inspiration in disaster resilience. And today, we are secretly hoping you will be revealing the magic formula that makes Japan so incredibly prepared. We are equally honored to welcome Dr. Krishna Vatsa sir, member NDMA, a leader whose calm clarity has guided India through some of the toughest disaster challenges. We thank you for your wisdom, your humanity, and your national leadership. It is a special privilege to have among us Professor C.V.R. Murthy, a name that every earthquake engineer in India knows, respects, and secretly fears when giving wrong answers. We celebrate your leadership, sir, your scholarship, and your continued inspirations to India's engineering community. A big thank you to all the distinguished speakers, keynote speakers, and bright spark lectures joining us from India and across the world. Without you, this symposium would have been, well, just a beautiful decorated hall with a very confused people. In the past 2 days, CSIR-CBRI has conducted a hands-on workshop and a shake table test. Our young engineers enjoyed them so much that they now want to shake everything: buildings, structures, bridges, and sometimes even their supervisors. Don't worry, we have limited this enthusiasm strictly to the laboratory only. Now about Ohow 2025. One Health, One World, jointly chaired by Professor R. Pradeep Kumar and Professor Wataru Tekuchi, brings together 20 plus distinguished speakers, 350 plus participants, 50 plus international delegates, 201 technical presentations across 20 sessions under 4 major themes, namely climate change and green recovery, urban safety and disaster mitigation, infrastructure management and sustainable built environment, public health research in Asia. In the coming 3 days, you will experience distinguished lectures, keynotes, parallel sessions, poster exhibitions, guided tour to CSIR-CBRI's advanced laboratories, designed not just to share knowledge, but to spark collaboration, ideas, friendship, and maybe even new project, particularly the joint projects between the two different countries. Our goal is simple: to create constructive dialogues, innovative solution, and global partnership for a safer, greener, and more resilient future. Let us make Ohow 2025 a memorable journey of learning, collaboration, and positive energy. With this, I warmly welcome you all once again. Thank you and enjoy your conference thoroughly. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chaurasia, for setting the context and vision for Ohow 2025. It is now my honor to invite our chairs, Professor R. Pradeep Kumar, Director CSIR-CBRI, for the welcome address. Please.
Dignitaries on the dais, Professor Kimiro Migro from University of Tokyo, and my own supervisor, PhD supervisor, nearly 25 years back, Sri Krishna Vatsa sir from NDMA, member NDMA, Professor C.V.R. Murthy, another mentor for me, though he won't agree, then Professor Wataru, another chairman from Japan or International for this conference, and my own colleague, Dr. Ajay Chaurasia, dignitaries sitting in the audience, colleagues and media representatives. It is indeed an honor to welcome you all to the fourth International Conference on One Health, One World, that is OHOW 2025. As highlighted by the organizing secretary, Dr. Ajay Chaurasia, this conference brings together four essential pillars of our collective future, that is climate change and green recovery, international public health research, especially in Asia, infrastructure management and sustainable built environment, and urban safety and disaster mitigation. So over the past 2 to 3 decades, our nation, India, has witnessed painful losses. 50,000 people lost their lives, 5 lakh people severely injured, 1 lakh houses collapsed, and over 1 million houses got severely damaged. These numbers remind us not only of our vulnerabilities but also of the urgency to act. The Disaster Management Act of 2025 marked a historic shift from a response-centric approach to mitigation-centric and preparedness-oriented framework, and this remains our guiding light. Today, as we work towards our Honorable Prime Minister's vision of developed India by 2047, every sector must contribute meaningfully. India's ascent to become the world's fourth largest economy, soon to be third, and aspiring to be number one economy in the world. That underscores the importance of resilient and future-ready infrastructure. It is estimated that $100 invested in infrastructure will contribute 3 times, that is $300 to economy. This makes a compelling case for us for our collective aspiration, that is no life loss, no property loss, and no business loss in future disasters. Every dollar invested in mitigation saves at least 7 times that amount in the post-disaster related activities. Okay. Less about life loss. So life safety will be the priority. Therefore, from this platform, I propose to Government of India through NDMA, that is institutionalize a National Disaster Mitigation Day. A National Disaster Mitigation Day. A day observed annually across the country to reflect on how we utilize mitigation resources to showcase our progress and to publicly display our national scorecard on disaster preparedness and disaster resilience. One of the critical causes of preventable losses is building collapse. We all know that. So we must strengthen our retrofitting activities, showcase publicly that these are the things which we have achieved in last 1 year and every year like that, and enforce compliance mechanism, invest in capacity building across all levels. As Bhagavad Gita reminds us, Yadyadacharati Shrestha Tattadeve Karo Janaha. That means we who are at the top levels should lead by example. What are the physical assets which are there in our control? Have we retrofitted them? Otherwise, how other people will follow? It will simply become only sermons and we give speeches and heated arguments but nothing on the ground. So that is very, very important. So we are gathered here in Devbhumi, a home to the sacred Char Dham, that is Yamunotri, as you can see in the picture here. So Yamunotri, Gangotri, Kedarnath and Badrinath, and the revered Panchprayag, the majestic confluence of 5 great rivers. Just as these rivers are converging, I hope participants from 13 countries will converge and confluence their knowledge, wisdom and innovations to advance the objectives of this conference. I once again extend my warm welcome to all the participants and I wish you a fruitful, insightful and memorable experience. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. May I now invite Professor Wataru Takeuchi from University of Tokyo to address the gathering.
Professor Pradeep, our general co-chair, and keynote speakers, invited lecturers, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and namaste. I'm Wataru Takeuchi from the University of Tokyo. So as a co-chair and the director of One Health, One World Research Initiative, it is my great honor and privilege to welcome all of you to the fourth International Symposium on One Health and One World here in Roorkee, India. Following our successful symposia in Bangkok in Thailand, Dhaka in Bangladesh, and Putrajaya in Malaysia last year, we are delighted to gather here today for further expand our network and research activities. So in the light of global changes, we have faced particularly the spread of coronavirus, importance of Manhattan Principles, and also known as the One Health Initiative, has been reaffirmed our worldwide. So we deeply understand that the health of humans, livestock, and wildlife is interconnected. However, One Health necessitates our world. True human health depends on a clean environment and safe infrastructures. This is why our gathering is very unique. We bridge the gap between nature and medicine, veterinary science, and engineering. The urgency of this integrated approach has never been greater. So this year marks the 10th anniversary of the devastating 2015 Nepal earthquake. Furthermore, the recent 2025 this year Myanmar earthquake has reminded us of the fragility of our built environment. So this event served as powerful reminders for us. Whether we are facing infectious disease, natural catastrophes, we need robust, integrated approaches to infrastructure, resilience, and global cooperations. So over the course of this symposium, we will discuss these critical issues. So our topics include climate change, green recovery, infrastructure management, international public health, and disaster mitigations. So our goal is to discuss how to build a sustainable future, which is resilient both biological and biophysical threats, not just to recover. So beyond the academic program, we have created networking opportunities and social events. So I encourage all of you, students, researchers, professors, experts, take the full advantage of these opportunities to connect each other. So please interact with your colleagues and friends outside of your research field. So those chances encourage us for innovative ideas and speak out, lifelong connections formed. So we look forward to have a productive symposium next 2 days. So together, let us advance the mission over together. And lastly, but not the least, we sincerely appreciate for the organizers, local committee members who have prepared and very hardworking to make this symposium very successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, professors, for your inspiring words and for your leadership in this collaborative global initiative. We now move to an important moment, the official release of Ohow 2025 proceedings. May I request our dignitaries on stage to kindly release the volume. The The proceeding includes messages from leadership from India, Japan, and over 221 extended abstracts. Thank you, honored guests. We are privileged to have with us our guest of honor, Professor CBR Murthy. I request Professor Murthy to kindly deliver his address.
Respected Professor Kimiro Meguro, respected Dr. Krishna Vatsa, respected Professor Wataru Takeuchi, dear Ajay Chaurasia, distinguished invitees, speakers, dignitaries from other countries, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here today and see this partnership flourish between 13 nations. With over 2 billion population that they are serving, some of these nations are ahead in a few subjects, some are ahead in the other subjects. This is the opportunity to learn from each other, and I'm looking forward to the 2 days of learning from colleagues who have come from outside the country. I have only 2 requests. One is that together we can build competence and in these nations. When I say competence, I'm looking at 3 interest groups specifically. One is architects, second engineers, and third artisans. There is so much of good practices that is happening in these 13 nations that we need to collect those and see if they can be adopted or adapted to these other nations and take advantage of the hard work, experience, and lessons that they have learned in the past earthquakes and other disasters. I look at this event as yet another beginning of a very solemn effort to protect the people in these nations. The numbers that Professor Pradeep Kumar mentioned of the losses of lives and property tells us that at least in India, we are far away from getting those numbers down to single digits and double digits. But having said that, it's an urgent requirement for us to do it, and we are hungry and bullish to learn from all the colleagues who are here presenting, both from within the country as well as from the other countries. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Professor Murthy. We are highly honored to have with us our guest of honor, Dr. Krishna Vatsa, Member, National Disaster Management Authority, Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, New Delhi. I request Dr. Vatsa to kindly deliver his address.
Very good morning to you, distinguished guest, Professor Meguro, Professor Takeuchi, Professor Murthy, my colleagues from the CBRI, all the distinguished participants, experts, friends. It's an honor to be here. We have, on behalf of the National Disaster Management Authority, I extend you very warm greetings, and I would like to mention how the NDMA and CBRI collaborate very closely on a wide range of issues, and this conference provides us another opportunity to take the collaboration further. So when Pradeep ji mentioned about this conference, I immediately agreed to join here, and I'm so glad that such a wide range of issues are being discussed. These issues relate to resilience. It these issues relate to the sustainability and a safe humanity, and I think all these are extremely important in the context of climate change, structural safety, building technologies, which are very critical issues today. I would also like to mention, since Pradeep ji talked about the Devbhoomi, how this area is, place of gods. This area is also known for India's very innovative, very pioneering water engineering. This is where the modern water engineering has started. And this was also in response to huge challenge of droughts and famines that 19th century India witnessed, and there was a very well organized effort in terms of creating new canals, new water structures, and setting up the engineering college at Roorkee. And that's how this entire educational complex has come up. So this is a place where we have been addressing resilience for a very long time, and it's apt that we are meeting here today again to discuss a wide range of resilience issues that are very critical. All these areas, the close to the Himalayas, are facing a lot of climate hazards, heavy precipitation, flash floods, landslides, drought. All the issues are very frequent and very serious. So this provides the right context, right backdrop for discussing the solutions. And we're glad the Japan is represented here. Japan is the world leader in disaster risk management, and we always look up to Japan for its leadership, its inspiration, and its various innovations. And similarly, I would also like to mention that we recently sent a delegation to Taiwan. Professor Murthy went there. Chaurasia ji was also part of that. So we acknowledge the kind of progress that is being made in this Asia Pacific region, and we are so fortunate to have you here and have you guide us through the discussions. So a lot of challenges and lot of solutions need to come up through the workshop. I would like to say that the Sendai framework, that is the global framework for the disaster risk reduction, is coming to a close soon. We need to accelerate the implementation, but we also need to think of the next cycle of the global framework, where I think the resilience would find the due recognition. So 2030 we will have the next World Conference on disaster risk reduction, and I hope that a lot of discussion that takes place here would contribute to the next global framework for disaster risk reduction that will happen in 2030. We also see how Japan has led this discussion to 1995, Yokohama 2005, Hyogo, and 2015 Sendai framework. And those frameworks have been guiding us. Now we have traveled a long way, and we must also review the progress that we have made. Following these frameworks, there is a huge step up that the humanity has actually achieved thanks to some of these global efforts, and we can go further through the next framework that is due in 2030. So with all the positive influences that are with us. We are going to see a lot of achievements, and I wish the conference the very best for its success. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vatsa, for your valuable insights and distinguished presence. We are deeply honored to welcome our chief guest, Professor Kimuro Miguru, Institute of Industrial Science, the University of Tokyo, Japan. I invite Professor Miguru to deliver his inaugural address.
Hi, good morning, distinguished guests, keynote speakers, old and new friends, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Kimuro Meguro. I'm a disaster management field person, but now I'm a Dean of Inter-Faculty Initiative in Information Studies, the University of Tokyo, Japan. It is my great honor and pleasure to extend heartfelt greetings to all the participants of the 4th International Symposium on One Health, One World, OHOW 2025, being hosted by the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, the Central Building Research Institute, CSIR-CBRI, Roorkee, India, from 20th to 22nd November 2025. In today's interconnected world, problems such as climate change, pandemics, rapid urbanization, and natural disasters transcend borders and disciplines. They call for integrated scientific approaches and sustainable international partnerships. OHOW 2025 serves as a valuable platform for scientists, engineers, public health experts, and policymakers to exchange ideas and experiences and to collaborate towards solutions that enhance community resilience and sustainability. I deeply appreciate the initiative and leadership of CBRI, especially its director, Professor Pradeep Kumar. Actually, he was my former student 25 years before. At that time, he studied hard, and after graduation, he worked too much. Therefore, nowadays, he looks older than I. But anyway, I appreciate very much Professor Pradeep in organizing this significant global forum. The Institute's long-standing commitment to advancing disaster-resilient construction, sustainable habitats, and multidisciplinary research is commendable. Through its dedicated efforts and visionary leadership, CBRI has strengthened India's and the world's capacity to face emerging risks with scientific wisdom and practical innovation. I am confident that OHOW 2025 will foster enduring research collaborations, stimulate innovative thinking, and contribute meaningfully to the shared global mission of achieving safer, healthier, and more sustainable societies. I extend my best wishes to CSIR-CBRI, the organizing committee, sponsors, and all participants for the highly successful and impactful symposium. I do hope all of you here can enjoy OHOW 2025, obtain ideas, and create and lay forth ties among participants for implementation of resilient and sustainable world. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Professor Meguru, for your inspiring words and for gracing this ceremony. We now proceed to the felicitation of our honored guest. May I request Professor Pradeep Kumar to present the mementos as a token of respect and gratitude. Professor Kimero Meguru. Dr. Krishna Vatsa. Professor CVR Murthy. Professor Wataru Tekiyuchi. It is a personalized 3D engraved crystal keepsake offered with our deepest gratitude for your valued presence at the symposium. Thank you. I now invite Dr. D.P. Kanungo to deliver the vote of thanks for the inaugural ceremony.
So thank you, Vishaka. So honorable dignitaries on the dais, distinguished delegates, esteemed speakers, colleagues, and dear friends. It is my honor and privilege to deliver a vote of thanks on behalf of CSIR-CBRI Roorkee and the University of Tokyo, Japan, at the close of the memorable inaugural ceremony of OHOW 2025. Let me begin by expressing our deepest gratitude to our chief guest, Professor Megro, for his inspiring and insightful address and appreciations. I extend our sincere appreciation to our guest of honor, Dr. Krishna Vatsa sir, member NDMA. Sir, your clarity of thoughts, practical wisdom, and humanity perspective remind us that disaster management is not merely the scientific discipline. It is a national responsibility and a social commitment. We are equally honored to acknowledge Professor C.V.R. Murthy, a name that resonates in our every earthquake engineering classrooms in India. We are privileged by your presence and guidance here, sir, today. My heartfelt thanks to our chairs, Professor R. Pradeep Kumar, Directors CSIR-CBRI Roorkee, and Professor Wataru Tekiyuchi for their vision, leadership, and unwavering support in shaping Ohow 2025 in a truly global platform. At the same time, to all our distinguished speakers, keynote speakers, and bright spark speakers, and our esteemed international delegates from Japan, Taiwan, Portugal, Thailand, Nepal, Bangladesh, New Zealand, Myanmar, and across India. Thank you for bringing your knowledge, enthusiasm, and global perspective. You make this symposium a vibrant confluence of ideas. A special and sincere appreciations to the organizing committee, the technical, scientific, and administrative committees, session chairs, volunteers, and the entire CSIR-CBRI family. Your perseverance, discipline, and teamwork have made this event possible. We are also grateful to our partners NDMA and Uttarakhand SDMA, our sponsors BG Shirke Construction Technology Private Limited, NBCC, Twesta, NVLA, Magicret, Ultratech, Buildtech, IR Class, Apple Chemi, Punjab and Sindh Bank, and also the media too, for their constant support, trust, and cooperation in enabling this international initiative of science, policy, and societal relevance. Finally, to each one of you present here, thank you for your presence, your patience, and your positive spirit. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Dr. Chaurasia. Now it's time to pay homage to our nation. May I request everyone to please rise for the national anthem. Please be seated. With this, the inaugural ceremony of Ohow 2025 concludes. We now proceed to the inauguration of the exhibition and high tea. All dignitaries and participants are requested to kindly assemble in the designated area. The technical sessions will be followed as scheduled. Thank you. May I have your attention, please? After the photography session, all of you are requested to assemble here, please. Thank you. Enjoy.
Yes, this side.
करना पड़ेगा लेकिन sir, please take my
No,
number.
no, I would like to check.
Yes, sir.
That's my screen. No, no, that. Can you see? No, my PPT. Okay, okay. Thank you.
Sir, can I?
Yes, please.
You sir, just
Is it here?
no, sir, please.
A very good morning to all of you. Now, again, I welcome you all. After this inauguration session, now we are going to start our technical sessions. So, starting with the technical sessions, first, I would like to introduce our distinguished speaker, all the way coming from Japan, Sir Professor Kimiro Meguro, Dean Interfaculty Initiative in Information Studies, Graduate School of Interdisciplinary Information Studies, Professor, Institute of Industrial Science, the University of Tokyo, Japan. Professor Meguro is well-renowned person in the this fraternity of scientific fraternity of earthquake engineering, founder World Seismic Safety Initiative, leading global earthquake risk reduction efforts since 1992, and instrumental in establishing seismic standards in 30 plus countries. So, if I start introducing him, it's a long paragraph. So you can. I don't want to show my lesser introduction from my side. So I request Dr. Professor Kimuro Meguro to come up on the dais and enlighten us with his presentation. Sir, thank you so much, sir.
Okay. Hi, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Kimiro Meguro. It is my great honor and pleasure to make the presentation what I have been doing. Today's my talk title is Towards Ideal Disaster Countermeasures in Japan. This is for Japanese disaster countermeasures, but this concept or way of thinking can be applied to other countries too. The parallel is the implementation of disaster resilience society, but how to achieve it. The first, we should understand their real situation, and also we should understand what the comprehensive disaster management system is. And we must have ability to see both whole picture and its essence. And we should pay attention to the hidden mechanisms by which the people behavior or people decision is affected or is controlled. And when we discuss the solutions, always we should keep the two different lengths measuring stick rulers. And also we should improve our disaster imagination capacity. For disaster reduction, knowledge of natural science and technology approach are very important. Yes. But in many cases, real problems cannot be solved by only knowledge of natural science and technological approach. I believe that many of you here are trained in natural science or engineering. The people in natural science, I want them to seek the scientific truth. But for engineers who want to solve the real problems, we should open our eyes wider and to study more about the social systems, including human behavior. Otherwise, it is quite difficult to solve the problem. It is necessary to integrate technological approach based on based on knowledge on natural science and social approach based on the knowledge of social science, both of which should be locally feasible and acceptable. This shows the comprehensive disaster management system, starting from mitigation. This damage mitigation is composed of two elements. One is structural mitigation. In case of the earthquake disaster, when we increase the performance and the seismic capacity of the structures is improved, then we can reduce a lot of damage. This is called structural mitigation. And the other mitigation is, if you know this area is a dangerous area, for example, soil condition is bad, then by using the land use management, the authority should not give the permission to use that area or to construct the houses. That kind of the one we call land use management mitigation. And the second, preparedness. Even from the viewpoint of the critical approach, it is possible, but it costs too much. We cannot adopt such a measures. In such case, we prepare something before the hazard attack, and then we can reduce the affected area, or we can reduce the negative impact propagation velocity. Namely, preparation of the organization to respond, or preparation of the recovery reconstruction plan, preparation of disaster manual, or carrying out the disaster drills. These are the elements of the preparedness. And then, just before the hazard attack, if we can predict and give the information to the general public, we can reduce a lot of damage. But in case earthquake, it is still quite difficult, maybe practically impossible. But how about cyclones, typhoons, tsunami? We can get some leading time before the hazard attack. This is called prediction early warning. But with these countermeasures, the quite important point is the end user should understand the limitation and the meaning of the information and how to use that information for their evacuation, for example. Otherwise, it's quite difficult to use. And these three are called pre-disaster countermeasures. And then hazard attack. After the hazard attack, what we should do first is assess the damage. Where and what kind of damage happened, generated. As soon as possible, as high accuracy as possible. And based on the assessment results, what we should do next is sometimes we put emergency at the top, emergency disaster response. There are three purposes. First, rescue the people. Second, prevent the secondary damage. Third, recovery of important function of the affected area or the organizations. This does not include the recovery of the affected area itself. Therefore, recovery and reconstruction should follow. Generally, recovery means recover to what it used to be. But this is not enough. Disaster, especially the big disaster, has a very unique characteristics that even without disaster appears the potential problems that affected the area had before the hazard attack by shortening the time more visible. Therefore, Disaster is a very, very unfortunate event, but such unfortunate events should be used as an important opportunity to solve the problem or to improve the problem. That is the concept of BBB, Build Back Better, in Sendai framework. To do this, not only the scientists and engineers, we need a lot of different field persons. Otherwise, it's impossible. Hi, this shows the mechanism of the disaster. Always we are thinking how disaster happen or how we can prepare the proper disaster countermeasures. measures. We are always thinking what is input, what is system, what is output. Input is a hazard. Earthquake itself, cyclone itself. When I break down, that is the extent and area of the external force times probability. This is a hazard. And the system, this is composed of two elements. One is natural environmental characteristics. The other one is human-related, social environmental characteristics. Population density, population distribution, or age distribution, infrastructures, characteristics, politics, economics, culture, history, education, blah, 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 blah. These are all affecting the lifestyle of the people. And when these two are fixed, next time-related factor will be relatively important. If your target area has 4 seasons, tsunami in winter, tsunami in summer, there will be a very big difference. Also, the day of the week and occurrence time of the day. And output. This is not only the physical phenomena, but also the social phenomena. We engineers tend to think that this output is mainly physical phenomena, but this is wrong. The physical phenomena appear just after the hazard attack, a couple of days. After that day, at that time, following are all social phenomena. And when these physical, social phenomena exceed some criteria, for the first time, we call these situations as damage or disaster. Okay? Therefore, even the same input is inputted to the system. When the system becomes different, output should become different. Hi, I summarize the important things, how to prepare the proper disaster countermeasures. There are 3 conditions. 1, we know your enemies. 2, we know yourself. Your enemy, there are 2. One is input, system, output. This input and output, namely hazard and disaster. Yourself, 3. One is using this input, how to understand disaster. System is necessary. Therefore, first yourself is the regional characteristics of your target area. The second, this is the capacity of the governments that you belong, from the national, prefecture, province level, and municipalities. The people who do not understand well the capacity of the governments, they always ask everything to the government. But it's impossible from the government viewpoint due to time limitation and resource limitations. And number 3, yourself is your own self. But the people who do not understand your own capacity, people do not do. Even if you do, you can easily do, but they do not do and enlarge the damage. And number 3, disaster imagination. This is understanding the mechanism of the disaster and when the disaster happened. As time goes, what really happened around you, you should imagine what happened in time domains. We human beings, it is impossible for us to prepare well or to respond well for an unimaginable situation. That's why this disaster imagination is really, really important. And then if these three conditions are satisfied, then you can find out the current problems and future problems. Then based on the evaluation results, you can think about the measures and carry them out in a proper timing. But when you decide this timing, you should keep in mind two different lengths measuring sticks. One is long one, evaluate big space and long time. But the people sometimes do not understand what they should do. For those persons, by using a shorter ruler, you should show this is the real action. And then also with the effects and guide the people. But if you repeat the short distance ruler solution, there is a local maximum problems, then you are getting far from the global maximum solution. That's why we should have in our mind two different length rulers and do the solution in a balancing manner. I would like to show you some results, a real situation in 2011 Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami. You can see the very, very high area tsunami attack, over 40 meter. 40 means higher than 10-story structure, the roof. And also, we observed very, very strong ground motion, 3G. But we can reduce a lot the structural damage by our senior researchers' research results. It means we could successfully reduce the damage due to the similar magnitude of the hazard. But, of course, we have the problems. That one I will show you later. Then, totally, more than 22,000 people were killed. And mass media also reported very big number of people were killed due to tsunami and huge monetary loss. But we should not understand or we should not believe the information through media. We should check one by one from the scientific viewpoint. Even when we prepare the very big structural countermeasures and non-structural measures, we should keep in our mind always we have two different aspects, positive effect and negative effect. But before we discuss one by one, I would like to ask you the meaning of this 19.7% versus 3%. Do you know the meaning of this, these two numbers? Before I explain you the numbers meaning, I show you some photos. This is the disaster management headquarters office of Minami Sanrik Town. When I visited there and took this picture, the color of the structure is something reddish. On the roof, you can see the telecommunication tower. Beside that, you can see the white box. So I was very much surprised to see the next photo that I was going to show you. One guy climbed up to the tower and took photo. And fortunately, that guy could be saved, survive. Then we can see the photo. This is the photo. Okay? This red box is that this white box. Oh, this one. Okay, and this is the fence. These are the fence. And again, I was surprised to see the photos that were taken by other person from the Haiti area, local photographer. Hi, this one. When I visited there were no structures around that headquarters office, but actually, this was surrounded by many structures. And you can see on the roof there are many people having red jacket, blue jacket. The next. Hi. The next one, this tower will be here, somewhere here. And then you can see the guy, he took that photo. And if you watch very, very carefully, you can see some persons here. They are holding the fence. And here is a very big wave. And behind or under this big wave, there was stairs. And fortunately, the stairs was not broken, and some people could be saved. This is the one. The next, Kamaishi breakwater. This breakwater was written in Guinness Record Book. That is the world's biggest breakwater. The depth of water is 63 meters. They construct a very big mound, and on it they put a caisson and prepared a very big tsunami breakwater. But when I visited there, such a very huge one was broken. And mass media people reported that we spent a lot of time, a lot of money, but these facilities could not play an expected roles, and many people were killed. But this is wrong. Based on the very high accurate numerical simulation of tsunami, what we could find is the 6-minute delay time can be given to the people. Suppose you are a person inside of the port and you should evacuate. At the very, very last time, whether you can have 6 minutes or not, that is a very big difference. And the water in a normal wave, the water particle just going down, but water particle itself do not move. But tsunami, when the depths become shallow, the water from the base to the top, the tsunami water moves. Therefore, when here is a wall, it's impossible to prevent the overflowed part, but under the wall, very big volume of the water could be prevented from coming in. Therefore, inundation depth and runoff height, both height could be reduced by 30 to 50%. But what we observed actually was width case. Therefore, when we use width case and compare, then even with case, the tsunami was terrible. But in case we did not have such a facility, the height became 1.4 to 2 twice. And then, when we check from the very north part to the south part, all coastal area, up to where tsunami attack, and within the area, how many people are living, and among that population, how many people are killed. Then, at the time of the earthquake, that was 2:46 p.m., April 11th, 2011, in an inundation area, 620,000 people are there. Among these population, how many people are killed? 18,000 plus. This is just 3%. When I say it in a different way, 97% of the people who are located in the inundation area could survive. Survival ratio 97% is world highest score, much higher than comparing with the other past tsunami disasters. And when I check one by one municipality, only within the inundation area, the highest fatality ratio was Rikuzen Takara city. That number was 12.8%. And when we include the whole area of the municipality, Onagawa-cho, town Onagawa, the highest fatality ratio. That was 9.46. But when we compare the past one, you can see this time 9.46 was the highest. But you can see in Meiji Sanrik about 100 years before, the fatality rate was much higher than this time. And especially Taro area, in Meiji Sanrik, 83.1, Showa, 32.5, this time 3.9. Based on the lessons learned, they did a lot disaster countermeasures and they could drastically reduce the damage. But mass media people could not analyze and could not report their real situation. And this is Gujarat Kathmandu earthquake in 2015. Surrounding the area, over 9,000 people were killed. This happened April 25th. The Japanese government dispatched the team, search and rescue team, composed of 70 specialists with most advanced equipment, with rescue dogs, by using specially chartered airplane to the affected area. But because of bad operation of the international Tribhuvan airport, they are forced to go to India first and then come to the Kathmandu on 28th April and started the operation up to May 8th. Totally, around 800 man-day activities are there. And the Japanese government of foreign affairs wrote their website that for these activities, government of Nepal and Nepali people express their sincere appreciation. They wrote, but could you please guess how many people could be saved? Unfortunately, how many dead bodies were taken care by a Japanese team? Because of time limitation, I will just explain you. No available person, just one dead body. This is all Japanese team could do. So what I'd like to say is, it is quite difficult to save the people. But many people, especially from developing country, they are thinking that emergency response is the most important countermeasures of disaster management. This is wrong. Pre-disaster countermeasures are quite important. But to implement pre-disaster countermeasures, we should pay attention to the social systems, human behavior, not only the engineering approach. Hi. Even you establish the proper design code, if the people do not follow, nothing happens. Okay? Your developed code is very sophisticated one, very advanced one, but if people do not follow, I can say that your code is bad code. Then how to let the people follow? There are three patterns, three types. One is penalty system. But where the country or region, the governance is limited, this system cannot be functional. Much better one is the incentive system. If you follow, then you can get the benefit. And number three, disclose the information and guide the people. If you use this information well, then you can have benefit in future. I will skip. So when I look over the disaster-related projects in the world, 90% of the projects just focus on emergency phase. This is a number of project basis. When we check the budget by the World Bank, 70% is just focused on emergency. 20% is recovery reconstruction. Preparedness or mitigation, just less than 4%. But do you know why? Disaster response, emergency phase, search and rescue, and emergency supply. Both of them, the contribution to reduce the damage in future is almost zero. But why such a big number of projects just focus on emergency phase? If you have any idea, please let me know. First, it's easy comparing with pre-disaster countermeasures and post-disaster countermeasures. If you want to establish pre-disaster countermeasures, you should visit the site first and survey what is the real problem. And you should establish one by one original program. It takes time. Okay? But emergency phase projects, once you establish the system, even the target area's characteristics are different, you can apply the same methodology. And post-disaster countermeasure, this is in between. And when we check, Japan was before the first, but now the fifth. The US is the past. But US, 90%, 91% money are used for emergency response. Japan, 54. This is the world biggest. And then, next, how to solve the current situation and reasons. First, I explain you, it is easy. The next one is, suppose if you are a representative person of the project, you are always asked by the investor or donors, I gave you the money, your project should have high presence. To have the high presence, easiest way is to let the media report it. And then when media report the disaster-related activities, only after big disasters. Therefore, easy and to get presence. That's why even real meaning is quite limited. Many of the projects just focus on the emergency phase. How to solve? The important point is that we should establish the proper indicator to discuss, to evaluate the real meaning of the projects from the viewpoint of the real capacity for reduction of damage in future. This one, I re-evaluate the money and check the number of people who will be damaged in future. Then Japan contribution become the first. This kind of proper indicator is quite important. Next one. From now, we, Japan, might be face the very, very big disaster. That is national critical disaster. Happened in 1975, Lisbon earthquake, or 1970, border cyclone in Bangladesh. At that time, East Pakistan. It is quite difficult to recover by only post-disaster countermeasures. Then how to solve such a situation? Now in Japan, their population society and the budget limitation is getting more. Therefore, there are three players for disaster management: public support, mutual assistance, self-help effort. But public support will be getting smaller. Then how to cover that reduction? Mutual assistance and self-help effort. Who are the player? Individual person and the company. But so far, when we ask them to do disaster management countermeasures, we are appealing to their conscience and morality. But it will be impossible to continue. We should change our mind that disaster countermeasure is not a cost, is value. And also, disaster is very limited phenomena in both time and space. Therefore, disaster countermeasures that give us the benefit only the time of disaster, it's quite difficult to donate, to invest. Then, from now, the main purpose of disaster management should be shifted from disaster situation to the normal, peaceful time to increase the life quality or to increase the performance of the company. Okay? And we should encourage the people to establish a business for disaster resilient society. And then the last the point. Please look at this. This shows the potential natural hazard risk given by Roorkee, Muhen Lee Insurance Company. And this is also the similar one by Royce. The corporate value of Japanese companies is evaluated lower than that of Western companies with comparable performance, such as sales or profits. Why? There are two major reasons. One is Japanese governments and companies do not proactively disclose the information related to disaster risks. If the information is not enough, evaluation organization should be evaluated in a conservative way. And meanwhile, both Japanese governments and companies have implemented world top-class disaster countermeasures, but they are not properly evaluated. That's why the company's value now is evaluated very low. But the risk is defined by this equation: hazard times exposed value times vulnerability. Japan has a lot of hazards. That's why, from the viewpoint of hazard, we have weak point. And exposed value, for example, Tokyo area, we have a concentration of the population and functions. Again, we have weak points. But how about the vulnerability? We did a lot of the countermeasures. And when we can decentralize the function of the population, then the risk can be evaluated much smaller. This values decentralization and vulnerability disaster countermeasures. And then, what we should do? First, establishment of method for accurately assessing the company's disaster risk or disaster resilience and make it an international standard. Second, design and create a system in which the assessment results are directly linked to the company's stock price. This is the incentive. Number three, each company is encouraged to proactively take measures to reduce disaster risk or to improve disaster resilience in order to increase the corporate value. Number four, decentralizing the proper corporate functions will also alleviate over concentration in the Tokyo metropolitan area. As a result, Japanese companies and citizens will be rich, and rural area will be revitalized, and future disaster will be significantly reduced. Many people do not think this kind of behavior or this kind of system is a disaster management system. But this kind of the one contribute a lot. So we should open our eyes and study more about the social systems, human behavior, and propose. And by combining the technical approach and social approach, we can solve the problem. Hi. If this program will be going well, then the Japanese companies will get about 100 to 200 trillion yen. If 2,000 trillion yen, that is the 20 times bigger budget than the annual Japanese government budget, 117 or 18. Okay, so we should open our eyes, not only the technological approach, but also social approach. We can solve the real problems. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Professor Megro, for sharing insights and delivering such a clear and valuable presentation. Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to request and invite our distinguished speaker, Dr. Krishna Vats, member NDMA, a leading voice in disaster risk management, to share his insights. Dr. Krishna Vats.
It's working? It's working? Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm before you again. And it's a tough act to follow after what Professor Megiro presented. It was a very comprehensive presentation. It demonstrated a breadth of intellectual and practical knowledge in disaster risk reduction, and we are so impressed and so educated by Professor Megro's presentation. Thank you very much. I would like to speak a little from the perspective of a practitioner. I recently appeared before the parliamentary committee. This is a standing committee on disaster risk reduction, risk management. And it's always an education when you appear before our honorable members of parliament. They are very closely connected to the communities and they know the grassroots issues very, very well. So when you hear from them, you hear very authentic voices and they express their concerns. And some of the concerns are very, very, I would say, very topical and very perceptive. One, they mentioned that as the temperatures are rising, we are seeing more instances of fire incidents happening in the rural areas. So, large number of fire incidents in the rural areas. Two, they mentioned about the increase in the incidence of flash floods. and as a result, the communities getting very surprised. Lot of people dying in flash floods. The third important concern, uh, the third important concern that they underlined was the um, landslides, of course. No, that a large number of landslides happening um, across the country. The fourth one that they mentioned about was the GLOF, the risks emanating from the glacial lakes. Um, and they, of course, spoke about the large number of lightning deaths. So you see, the risks are becoming more and more dispersed, more and more frequent, and they are getting more and more interconnected. Very difficult to pinpoint just one precise region why a certain event has happened. Several triggers come together, or several causative factors come together, and then we have a large scale disaster um, help striking the community, causing a huge loss. Though the mortality is declining, our economic losses are increasing. So these are some of the impressions that are gaining ground. I would also like to mention about how in the last 4 months, or I would say last 2 3 years, the Himalayan states in India are getting more and more affected. Jammu Kashmir, Uttarakhand, and Himachal Pradesh, all of them experiencing landslides, flash floods, and several other disasters. Now, the government is extremely concerned about this, and they suggested a more comprehensive set of interventions for these two states and the Union Territory of Jammu Kashmir. And recently, we made a presentation on the kind of interventions that are needed to improve the hazard monitoring, early warning, and risk reduction. So, as a result, we presented a set of instrumentations that the density of instruments needs to be increased considerably. We need to have far more Doppler radars. We need to have many more AWS, automated weather stations. We need to have lightning sensors. So there is a proposal for increasing the density of instruments at least 5 to 6 times. So in next 4 to 5 years, you will see that instrumentation for early warning, for monitoring of hazards is likely to expand considerably. Along with the instrumentation, we would also see disaster management more strengthened at the district level. We would see more risk assessments at the local level, more preparedness at the local level, and a large number of very site-specific mitigation measures. So this is another thing that I would like to bring to your kind attention. As Professor Megro mentioned, world over we have more and more 90% of the resources are devoted to response, and only 10% resources are devoted to mitigation and recovery and reconstruction. This is what Professor Megro just showed here. In this respect, India achieved a breakthrough when we restructured our entire disaster risk financing. And our risk financing is determined through the recommendations of these finance commissions. So the 15th Finance Commission suggested a very different kind of financing structure through which 40% of the resources are allocated for emergency response and relief, 30% of resources are allocated for recovery and reconstruction, 10% for preparedness, and 20% for mitigation. So as a result, the resources that are available for preparedness, for mitigation, for recovery and reconstruction have gone up considerably. These resources, as these resources increase, there is also a challenge of utilizing these resources effectively, which means that there is a huge amount of effort required. We are mentioning about, I mentioned about the instruments, how we will increase the instruments, the sensors and various kinds of monitoring instruments, nowcasting centers, risk assessment offices, all that we would be setting up. But procuring these instruments, setting up these nowcasting stations, all this will be a huge challenge for us. If we have to do it in the next 3 years to 5 years and we have to cover the entire Himalayas, it's a logistical challenge, it's a technical challenge, and we need to address these things through a serious capacity augmentation. Now that capacity is certainly lacking, and many of us who have worked at the district level and at the state level and even at the national level, we know that we have pockets of capacities, we have pockets of expertise, but we do not have a very comprehensive institutional and technical capacities that can rise to the challenge. So the major challenge that we are going to see in the next 4 or 5 years, which we need to address very squarely, is to improve the expertise in resilience, which means that we need to think of a new paradigm of resilience engineering. When I'm talking about the resilience engineering, it means that we need to have a strong base of technical knowledge which encompasses all the aspects of risk management: early warning, preparedness, mitigation, and recovery and reconstruction. There are institutions which are working in one particular area and they are not very familiar with the other area. There is a huge amount of segmentation in terms of knowledge and capacities. So institutions also need to transcend these boundaries and create new areas of knowledge, new areas of capacities. This is a challenge before us. As I represent NDMA, I definitely need to take the lead in this area. I need to bring together the institutions. I need to create the enabling conditions through which the institutions also come together, work together, and kind of transcend these boundaries, blur these boundaries. What kind of, as I mentioned, we have set up the mitigation fund. A total amount of $6 billion has been allocated for mitigation. 45,000 crores, 45,000 crores have been allocated for mitigation. It's a humongous challenge to spend this 45-6 billion dollars on truly uh, mm, uh, characterized, truly developed mitigation programs. Now, as a result of this allocation, we have been developing several mitigation programs at the national level. I will just give you some examples. We have a national level landslide risk mitigation program, which we are implementing in 15 states, 1,000 crores. We have a urban flood mitigation program which we are implementing in 7 largest cities of India, 2,500 crores. We are going to have a second generation of the urban flood mitigation programs extending to 11 cities. That is another 2,200 crores. We are going for the third phase of the urban flood mitigation program, again for the largest cities, for some more structural innovations. We have a forest fire mitigation program close to 900 crores being implemented in 19 states. We have a lightning mitigation programs being implemented in 50 districts of the across the 10 states. We have a drought mitigation program, 2,200 crores in 11 states. We have a GLOF mitigation program being implemented in 4 hilly states of Himalayas, 150 crores. And we are developing more and more mitigation programs focusing on coastal hazards, focusing on the riverine floods, and focusing on river and coastal erosion. This is the kind of pipeline of the mitigation programs. All the mitigation programs are a huge challenge for us in terms of implementation. We need far more engineering resources to implement them. So, what kind of engineering solutions we are looking for when we are going to implement these programs? We definitely need to have the kind of engineering technology for large scale retrofitting, not just 1 or 2 buildings to be retrofitted. When we have a huge mass of a structural vulnerability across the country and we need to undertake retrofitting on a large scale, it requires another kind of resources that are not present right now. We do not know how to do retrofitting on a large scale. So this is a very, very important challenge. We are talking about bioengineering. When we have to, and Professor Kanango from the CBRI helps us a lot in this area. We are developing this science of bioengineering. We are not there yet. We have implemented it on several sites. We need to develop it further. It's bringing both the structural and the nature-based systems together. We need to establish it further and we need to implement it across the Himalayas, across the coastal regions. When we want to implement bioengineering measures on such a large scale, please think of the kind of resources, the engineering resources, the technical expertise that is needed. Most of the solutions come from adequate judicious combination of the water resources, vegetation, and soil management. These are the 3 most critical ingredients of large-scale mitigation solutions. How we manage our water resources, how we dispose of water, how we conserve water, how we undertake vegetation on a large scale, what kind of species, what kind of climate, and how the vegetation and water would come together. And then finally, how do we preserve our soil layers? These are the how do we combine these measures? We have soil scientists working on the soil, and we have people who are specializing in forestry and agroforestry, and we have watershed management experts. We need to bring together some of these areas and implement them on a large scale for responding to all the various kinds of hazards and risks that we are faced with. So this is something very new, and we need to address this. We need to bring together this, and this is what we are saying, that we need to have a kind of engineering where we are able to anticipate risks, where we are able to monitor risks on a continuous basis, where we need to respond and then learn. And this is the crux of, this is the heart of resilience engineering. For doing all this, of course, we need to have seeds of knowledge, but we also need to develop tools, lot of tools. We need to have quick risk assessments. Now, risk assessments again are undertaken on different scales. How do we go about assessing risks very quickly, very rapidly? At the structural level, non-structural level, community level, settlement level, various kinds of risk assessment tools are needed. And the more we invest in the risk assessment, the more adept we are at assessing risks quickly. Two, we need to have more post-disaster investigations. That is one way of understanding our risks much better. There are risks in development. We need to visit, we need to study, we need to conduct more and more studies. And then we need to have assessment of damage and loss, what we call post-disaster needs assessment. Quick assessment, detailed assessment. So we need a large number of tools to understand and to perfect the whole gamut of risk management. So another area is that we should develop these tools, we should invest in practicing these tools, and there should be a widespread adoption of these tools at the state level and at the district level. All these tools and all these programs need to come together, and we need to monitor the impacts. Investing in mitigation programs, we need to demonstrate, yes, that really investing $1 in risk reduction and mitigation actually yields the benefit of $5, 4 times and 5 times. And we also need to have the monitoring framework, good monitoring tools, so that we can show that if we invest in all these states which are exposed to the rising temperature, excessive precipitation, and all kinds of the slope failures, we are getting the kind of results that we are planning for. So the broader point that I am making is this, that there is a need for understanding the context of risks. There is a need for a broader engagement, a stronger engagement with the policy and program context that is present, and we need to also expand the practice of the development and practice of various tools. And this requires an interdisciplinary approach. It requires that people who are just focused on one aspect of risk management should expand their vision, should expand their knowledge, and encompass all the other areas. We should have a more holistic, more integrated, and more comprehensive view of the disaster risk management at the grassroots level. Only then shall we make a real difference to the practice of disaster management. We will see the real impacts. So we are very conscious of our own responsibility, and that is why we are collaborating so closely with all the academic institutions. This this collaboration should become deeper. We should set up a knowledge center at the national level where we can bring together all the academic institutions to work on various kinds of solutions, and we are working towards that. But this is a journey where some sense of urgency is needed, and I request all of you to join us to support these national initiatives which are currently underway. Thank you very much for giving me so much of attention. Thank you.
Thank you very thank you very much, sir, for your kind inspiration and focus on institutionalization in disaster risk reduction, mitigation, and management. So, so now I take an opportunity to invite Professor Chai, from Deputy Director General from NCRE Taiwan, National Center for Earthquake Engineering Taiwan. He will be focusing on different aspect on earthquake engineering, particularly the experimental investigations and moreover how the Taiwan has transformed to resiliency. It is a good comparison between year 1999 Chichi earthquake and the recent earthquake in 2020. Thank you. Over to Professor Chan. The platform is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm honored to be invited here to share my experience of what we did in Taiwan for the earthquake disaster mitigation. Okay, I just show the outline of my presentation today. And I'm going to introduce our centers and to introduce some research results and some AI application in earthquake engineering. Okay. So, in fact, NCRE National Center for Research on Earthquake Engineering is one national center of the National Institute of Applied Research, we call it NIR. And NIR is hosted by the National Science and Technology Council. And there are total 4 groups, including the environmental technology, we have the NCRE and TORI for the Ocean Research Institute, and the ICT topics. We have the National Center for Instrumentation Research and the High Performance Computing and the Taiwan Semiconductor Research Institute. And for the biomedical technology, we have the National Center for Biomodels and the S&T Policy. We have the Science and Technology Policy Research and Information Center. And now we have the Preparation Office of the National Center for AI Robots. Okay. NCRE was established in 1990 in the campus of National Taiwan University, and the mission is like before the earthquake, we have to do some preparation, and during earthquake, we have to do some response, emergency response, and after the earthquake, we have to post-quake recovery. And we want to integrate all the researchers in Taiwan and also promote the international cooperation with other people in the world. Okay, and here shows like the NCRE, we focus on the fundamental research, and we want to apply not only to the general buildings, and we want to apply to the important structures, such as the nuclear power plant, high-tech factory, and they also want to apply to the rescue and the emergency facility, including the hospitals and the school, and also apply to the lifeline utility, including the water, gas, and power. And they want to integrate the 3 major research topics, that is seismic performance improvement, and monitoring and early warning, and hazard analysis and risk assessment. We want to build recoverable and sustainable communities. Okay, and here just shows some experience facility at NCRE. We have the Taipei and the Tainan. So in Taipei, we have the we have the three-dimensional shaping table with a 5 meter by 5 meter, and then we have the reaction wall and the strong flow systems, and the energy dissipation device test system, and the multi-exit testing system we call the MAX. It just is similar to the shaping table, but we can apply the vertical load by the reaction frame. And in Thailand, we have a larger shaping table with 5 meter by 8 meter by 8 meter, and the velocity can be up to 2 meter per second, and the torque is plus minus 1 meter, such that it can be used to simulate the near foreground motions. And then we have the bags, similar to the mass in Taipei, but with higher velocity and high torque. And also for the testing for the non-torque component, especially for the mechanical and electrical equipment, we have the max, a small shaping table, but with higher frequency. Okay, and now I want to introduce the structural retrofit program for the school buildings in Taiwan. As you know, after the G3 earthquake, there are some school buildings collapsed, and then Anchorage helped the government to develop some strategy to retrofit the school building for the private student for the students, and so we just to determine the system capacity not only in the laboratory, but also by the in situ testing in the Kowu Elementary School to know the performance of the existing building, especially for the school building. And then we developed the screen strategy. That means the preliminary evaluation, and we can set the potential danger school buildings, and based on the detailed evaluation to choose the real damaged school buildings to be retrofit. And we developed some economic typical retrofit method. We use the jacket column to enlarge the columns, and we use the shear wall and or the wing wall to increase the capacity in the vertical element. And based on the screen strategy, we can see that only 37% of the school building was retrofit. In the totally about 28,000 school buildings. Okay, and they can see the effectiveness of the retrofit just in the campus of the Hualien the school. And there is two adjacent buildings. One has been retrofit by the shear wall, and the other not yet retrofit. Okay, so the last year in the Hualien earthquake with a magnitude of 7.2, we can see a different performance. The retrofit one with no any damage, but this one not retrofit has some serious damage. So we can see the effectiveness of the retrofit method, and all the method extend to all public buildings, not only the school building to the government building are all evaluated and retrofit. Okay, and for a private building, it's difficult to ask the owner to pay for the retrofit. So Anchorage developed some strategy for the private building. Okay, it was observed that the mixed restaurant and the commercial building with a soft and wood story on the first floor. So the strategy is to maybe we can retrofit only the wood floor, and then we can reduce the collapse risk due to soft and wood story. So in the first stage, we ask the owner to retrofit only the soft and wood story, and the whole building will be retrofit in the future. Okay, and we provide the website to ask people that you can just based on the website to know whether your house is safe or not. The owner just to input the dimensions and the amounts of the column and the wall. Then we can, based on the preliminary evaluation, we can ask them, okay, your house is safe enough, or you have to ask the you have asked to the professional technician for detailed assessment, or you have to retrofit. And I want to introduce the BRB, the buckling restraint brace. The BRB has the stability and energy dissipation and easy to construction. So it is applied to the new building and also in the retrofit buildings. Okay, we just show one example in the Hualien earthquake. You can see there are two buildings, one is collapsed and the other is still survived. And in fact, the hotel that Trump was classified as a moderate damage building after the earthquake in 2016. However, it will retrofit by the BRB. And then for during the last year, the Hualien earthquake occurred again. The building after retrofit by BRB is survived, and the other are collapsed just across the street. Okay, and also the retrofit applied to the bridge. And also we have the experiment study in the laboratory and also in the on-site experiments. And then we developed some retrofit methods such as the shear key reinforcement and the jacket column and the 18 pile foundations. And this project is applied to the highway retrofit in Taiwan. Okay, now we go to the transfer to the non-short components. Because maybe sometimes the earthquake is not large enough, the structure is okay, but the function of the non-short component will be failed. So we have to do some study about non-short components, and we call the development of seismic resilience strategy for critical non-structural component and the systems. And this is an international cooperation project between Taiwan and e-defense in Japan and the CSIR in Korea. We do some tests in Thailand laboratory of Anhui for the small-scale experiment. We are focused on the left-line systems, such as the busway for the power and the multi-layer piping system for the water and the 5 sprinkler piping systems, and consider about the failure mode of the ceiling with the vary levels of the floating ceiling systems. And after the experiment in Taiwan, we developed some strategy, the retrofit strategy, and then we, in the next year, 2023, we just put our specimen and with the original specimen with the and the retrofit one in the to the e-defense and to be tested by a full-scale 10-story steel building. Okay, here just shows the example of the busway. So not only to experiment study, we have also a numerical study about the performance. So we define the finite element model for the busway system and all the property of the pipe, the busway, and all the joint, including the spring isolator. The property are tested in the laboratory, and then we can see the dynamic behavior, and then just put into the finite element model to see the response after excitation. Okay, and now we are focused on the spring isolated suspended air handling unit. Okay, this is a real case in the Hualien earthquake, which are duplicated in our laboratory based on the three-story frame. And you can see like the large horizontal displacement occurred and will impact to the adjacent piping system to cause the flooding. Okay, so but we don't want to limit the function of the spring isolated function, so cannot to fix the unit directly. So we have to some strategy maybe based on the slack cable wire or by the stopper to restrain the horizontal displacement. Okay, we can say it has some function, some effectiveness, but not enough. So because due to the impact, the wire may be loosened and the stopper may be failed due to the impact. So now we just do another experiment. We just fix the unit onto a rigid frame with brace by the sesame snappers, such that you the in the such that we can remain the vibration isolation along the vertical direction, but during the earthquake, we can provide the restraint along the horizontal direction and also provide the damping in 3 directions. So you can see from the video that this is the retrofit one, just to vibrate a little on the grain, but the other one without only by the spring isolated subordinate wire, just to failed. Okay, and now I want to introduce some research for the high-tech factory. Okay, the semiconductor is very important in Taiwan, so we want to keep the function, especially after the earthquake, we can reduce the shutdown time. So first we see the ceilings in the clean room. Okay, we know that in the clean room, the ceiling is hanger from the upper floor. So the excitation point is on the upper floor, the red one here. But we want to use the tester frame on the shaking table. We have to control the input motion of the shaking table such that the anchor point will be response as the same with the upper floor in the clean room. So we'll basically value the rigid frame. However, it rigid not the real rigid. So we have to determine the transfer function, and then we can determine the input motion as the blue ones to such that the response on the top of the frame will be the same as the excitation on the anchor points. And also we do some research about the furnace. Okay, this is just a dummy because the furnace is very expensive. So we just put the model and then put onto the base isolation system and to see the performance. And then also the tube and the board is put onto the cap in the dummy model. And also we just use the shaking table to see the performance of the board only. So we just put the board on the table, so have to define the input motion again. Okay, now we have know the response RC flow based on the guideline, so we can determine the guideline on the RC flow. However, the board is anchored on the cap position, so we do some in situ ambient vibration test to the clean room to determine the transfer function from the flow to the cap, and then we can modify the flow motion to the cap response, and then use the red one as the input motion of the shaking table. And also we do some research about some other process tools such as the stackers, shovel racks, and the rest flow, and AGV and MR in the clean room. Okay, and then energy is a very important issue in Taiwan, and now we use some wind energy. There's many onshore or offshore wind farm in Taiwan. So however, Taiwan is a high seismicity, different from that in Europe. So I have to help the government to define some criteria for the seismic qualification control. So we have to determine the method. We have to determine the function of the critical component in a nacelle. But however, it's a procedure which are based on the real nacelle. So we use a Feynman model such that we can determine the response. It just is a tower. We can determine the response on the top of tower this is associated with the design ground motions. And then we have also the finite model of the whole nacelle and the detailed finite model for the critical component is a control panel and will be very significant in the earthquake. So the excitation of the nacelle is just a response on the top of the tower. So we can use the response as the information for the time history analysis, and also can be used as the information of the shaking table. And the finite element model are verified by the external data, so we can know the calculated results are correct. And then we can focus on the response at the anchor point of the control panel, and then we can use the input as a shaking table and to do only the control panel. And the result shows like the response on the top of the control panel is the same as that measured in the full nacelle. So this is a procedure we can determine so that we develop the so-called hybrid method. First, we can use the finite element model to determine the response of the anchor point of the critical component. Because the nacelle is larger and larger, it cannot be put onto the shaking table for the full-scale nacelle testing. So based on the numerical method, we see the response. And the response can be used as an information to test only the critical components. And here you can see that in additional to the three-dimensional excitation, we use the six-dimensional because you know that the large displacement on the tower. So you can see that the motion, including the roll and the pitch angle, not only the translation in the three-dimensional. So with the six-dimensional information to see, and the purpose is to not to see the trace, not for the mechanical function, is for the electric function. So we can check the functionality of the control panel during and after the earthquake to see that it can still keep the function in the Taiwan side. Okay, and we developed and we know that the base isolation system is good, but for some existing building, it is impossible to uplift the building to put on the isolator. But there are some important components should be protected. So we developed the small isolation system we call the multi-function rolling type isolation system, and it can have the function of the energy dissipation and the self-recentering capability. Here just shows one example on the shaking table. You can see that it's a mask and just put onto the isolation and put onto the shaking table during the test. Now here you can see the robot inside the mask can keep its original function, even though the table is designed based on the Jeju earthquake. So can apply to many equipment such as high tech and some server. Okay, and now I want to introduce the early warning system. Okay, in Taiwan, ENCRI, together with the Central Weather Administration, we developed the data hub, and the regional early warning system is developed by the Central Weather Administration. That just to determine the magnitude and the epicenter and the depth of the earthquake, and then they can estimate the PGA according to the attenuation load. And ENCRI developed the on-site early warning system, which just to measure the rapid P wave, and then to estimate the following intensity of the shear wave. Okay, so the data hub just combine the two systems, so we can just to take the allow the warning signal to the public, and before the strong shear wave arrives. So I can just an example, can just one side and to be triggered and to give alarm before the shear wave front. And after the regional early warning system is alarms. And also we can use the on-site stations to modify the signal, modify the predicted amplitude. In addition to the PGA-based early warning system, which are called just to estimate the peak ground acceleration, we have developed the PFA-based early warning system. The PFA means the peak flow acceleration, because we know that the different frequency content of the ground motion, and then some building will to induce some significant flow response due to the resonance effect. And here just show one example. Is a building and the distribution of the PFA for the two different earthquakes. We can say the two earthquakes have the same peak ground acceleration. So no warning signal announced by the PJ-based EWS. However, you can see that the blue one, the frequency content just to resonate with the building, so you can see the higher peak flow acceleration occur on the upper floors. So if we based on the PFA earthquake early warning system, the warning signal will alarm for the people on the higher levels, such that they can take some protected actions. So we developed the PFA-based EWS, which has to, again, from around the P wave, we can to estimate the power of the ground motions, and then we can determine the intensity of the following S wave, and also we can estimate the frequency content of this earthquake, this ground motion. And we have the predictive model for specific building that maybe can obtain by the design parameters or the finite element model or the building array on the story. So we can have the intensity and the frequency content. We can estimate the peak flow acceleration. If it is beyond the threshold, the warning signal will be announced to the people. Okay, and here just safety health monitoring for the building. We put some accelerometer on the building and all some important buildings, and all the data will transfer to the central server. So for the building, we can obtain the long-term structural monitoring. For example, we can measure the period of the structure long-term. And if the period is changed significantly, we know something happened. And during the earthquake, we have a real-time recording the structural behavior, and then we can, based on the data, to determine the building. For example, the drift ratio is beyond the safety threshold, and to give some alarms. And also for the bridge. For the bridge, we can know the property of the specific bridge. So have the field loading tested by the truck. And then we have the numerical model to see the response. And then we can define the threshold of the warning or action. And then we put some sensor on the bridge and to take the data for the long-term monitoring. If something happens, we can give some report and give some alert or take the action. Okay, now just to the smart city. Roorkee just the area in the Hualien city. In addition to the three-dimensional model, we have put some mechanical property in the model in the digital twin, because we can just can see recognize it as a stick model. So we have the structures, the RC structures or steel structures, low-rise building or high-rise building. So during the earthquake, we can not only to just do the geometrical shape, we can estimate the response of such buildings. And so we can see the difference of the color. That means the strength of the buildings. And then after the earthquake, all the data will transfer to the emergence center. And then we know which building may be damaged, severe damaged, based on our systems. We only combine the geometric shape and the mechanical properties. Okay, and here shows some service platform. First one is the structural analysis software. We develop the software, and the engineer can use the software on site. It includes the PISA 3D is for the dynamic time history analysis, and the T-SPA and the T-STAR is for the buildings for the pushover analysis, and including the RC and the steel and the dynamic analysis. And also we can develop the design spectrum for the specific site, and then we can to select the ground motion. The ground motion is the best to compare to the response spectrum. Then we can define that as the design ground motion for the time series analysis. And our time structure map assessment system, after the earthquake, it can show the distribution of the ground shaking, not only the PGA and also the spectral acceleration for the short period range and for the 1 second can be determined immediately and shown on the map. And we have the structural modeling system, and also we developed the earthquake emergence disaster survey platform. The people for the after the earthquake, we can just take the smartphone and take the picture and give some description, and all the data will transfer to the emergency response center and shown on the map. Okay, and we're going to show the AI enhanced digital twin for the disaster relief. So we can, for the large-scale damage recognition, we can see the damage area based on the satellite or aerial image. And also, after the earthquake, we can generate a 3D model and know the entrance for the repair plans. And we can use AI to read the architectural drawing and know the size of the column in the wall and for the preliminary seismic evaluation. And also we have used to the inspection at the construction site and to inspect in the GNSS left zone, such as in the channel or under the bridge. We can to control the drone to take the photo and also apply to the welding system. And finally, I want to show the public education. Every year, we will host an event called Ideas International Seismic Engineering Model Competition. We ask all the students from the Taiwan International School and put the model and the test on the table to see the performance. And also we to define some website and the menu for the popular science. And especially we have the volcano of the observatory and open to public. We have to define some immersive experience for the people. Okay, that's all of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all the distinguished speakers. So now I will not going to elaborate more because we are running short of time. So I request Professor Pradeep Kumarji, Director CSIR-CBRI, to felicitate our distinguished speakers. So I request Professor Magro, please. Sir, please. Now can I request Dr. Krishnawat sir? a token of remembrance, sir, on behalf of CSR, CBRI, and organizing committee. Thank you so much, sir. May I now request Professor Chai, please? Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So now we are starting parallel sessions. So first, now parallel session 1, 2, 3, 4 will be running in different halls. Surya, uh, Jal, Vayu, and Agni. So the presenters or can move to the respective halls. Also, the distinguished participants they may opt as per their choice. So this is the Surya Hall, wherein the parallel session one will be beginning, which is basically focusing on the urban safety and disaster mitigation. For that, the chair would be Dr. Devi Prasad Kanungo from he is a chief scientist from CSIR-CBRI Roorkee, while the co-chair will be Dr. Kin Math Ko, IAS, the University of Tokyo, Japan. So our chairs and co-chairs are very prompt and they have taken the chairs in advance. So now the stage is yours, Professor.
So, not wasting much time, as per schedule, we have 10 presentations in this session on urban safety and disaster mitigation. May I know how many are present here? Can you raise up your hand? One, two, three, four, five, and I think Suman has two presentations, so total six presentations, and we have 45 minutes. We are running short of time, 45 and six presentations. So there will be 7 to 8 minutes for each presentation. So I'd request be brief in communicating your outcomes of the research. Don't focus much on introduction because there is a learner gathering over here. So just focus on the methodology and the outcomes and the message you are giving to the research community. So I'll be allowing 6 minutes for presentation. In 5 minutes I will have a bell so that you get a message you have 1 minute left, and after 6 minutes we will have one or two questions for that presentation 1 minute. So we will manage with 7 or 7.5 minutes. Okay, thank you very much. So I invite the first presenter is Amlan K. Sengupta, and the presentation is on investigation or shear strength and behavior of reinforced concrete short span T-beams strengthened by concrete jacket. It's co-authored by Vishnu T. Unni.
Okay, good afternoon to all of you. I will be presenting on my students' work. It is the strengthening of the beams which are short in span and hence they are shear governed. Can you confirm from there? Okay, next. Yeah, see, we have been listening to disaster mitigation, and one of the methods is jacketing with reinforced concrete. Next. The shear failures is a concern for any short span beam. Even retrofitting for shear is also necessary for long span beams which have to be retrofitted for flexure, and we know that the shear strength has to be more than that of the flexure. Next. The shear failures can be because of insufficient design or detailing, and the retrofit measure, the first should be a global retrofit. That means we are trying to handle the whole building as a whole, and then we should go for local retrofit measures. Within that also there are a few options, and I'm focusing on concrete jacketing. Next. Now, in this particular study, we first studied the use of microconcrete as a jacketing material. We also studied some interface properties by a different type of specimens, like slant shear specimens. And two orientations of stirrups were studied, vertical and inclined. Now, okay, the inclined stirrups, why we have gone for this is typically the shear cracks are diagonal, and under dynamic load we wish to have bars which will not kink during the formation of a diagonal crack. Now these are the set of specimens I'm presenting, and this is an original beam with very minimum amount of stirrups in the test region, and this is the retrofitted beam with inclined stirrups only in one direction because we are doing only a monotonic loading. And the steps of the retrofitting are that after the casting of the original beam, then we had to prepare the surface, and then we place the reinforcement cage, and then do the further casting and curing. Now the test setup was, we have a column testing machine which we needed because since we had to fail it in shear, and we had to have a pretty high strength machine, that within the this loading beams we place the supports with the load cells, then the specimens, and then we apply the load. Regarding the instrumentation, we monitored the shear deformations in the test region, and in order to measure the shear deformations we have to have strain rosettes, and this is the type of the load deflection curve we got. That means the red line is an original specimen, and we were able to increase the strength by a substantial amount. However, since the specimens are small, this much increase is not expected in real life structures. This is the protocol of the cycling load, and these are the test results for the cyclic load. What we were able to at least find that there was not any perceptible degradation of the strength under the cyclic load. Now coming to the prediction of the strengths. For any shear governed type of beam, the method that is followed is the Stratton-Time method, where the stresses in the concrete, they get reoriented after the major cracking in the diagonal direction. And we have certain expressions by which we can predict the strength of an existing beam. Whereas if it's a jacketed beam, then we need to enhance this procedure by including the heterogeneous section, and there we can use some sort of sandwich model to incorporate the jacket along with the original cross section. Now in design, of course, it will not be just the strength governed by the failure of the strut, but it will be actually governed by the failure of the ties if the ties are yielding first. And this is an expression which can be used if the ties are diagonal. Now these are some tabular values of the results, and what we can see is that at least for this static tests and the slow cyclic tests, the Stratton time method was able to predict the results quite reasonably. Now next is the behavior. Behavior means that if we go for a performance-based analysis, then not only does the strength, but we also need the behavior under shear deformation. Now, the behavior under shear deformation is much more difficult to predict as compared to a flexural deformation. And these are the different stages through which a shear panel gets gradually transformed to a Stratton type of model. That means we have to have a transition from the shear panel to a truss model. There is a method called generalized truss analogy by which we can try to predict the behavior. Right now, my student is trying to do a linear approximation of the generalized truss analogy. We have also monitored the shear deformations, as I said, by the LVDT rosettes, and we can see that there has been some improvement in the shear behavior in the shear panel region. To conclude that we did not observe any delamination between the original concrete and the jacket. This was also corroborated by the failure criterion we had developed using the slant shear tests. To predict the shear strength, the Stratton time model in association with some sandwich approach was reasonably good. The shear behavior can be predicted by a truss analogy, however, we are yet to get the results. And now this analytical model can be used to develop what is called the shear hinge property for short span beams in the pushover analysis of a building. These are the references. Thank you.
We can have quick one or two questions if there is any question. Quick question. Yeah, thank you very much. So I'll invite the next presenter, Ganesh A. Suryavanshi, Analysis and Design Methods of Piles, a Critical Review. Please. The timer is given at that corner, okay? The timer will run at that corner, so you'll be given 6 minutes, so accordingly you adjust your time.
Okay. Good afternoon all. Myself Ganesh Suryavanshi. My presentation topic is on analysis and design methods of piles and a review. Outline of my presentation is motivation, analysis methods such as the static method, dynamic methods, then pile load test, that is a field test, and negative skin friction, and advanced method like FEM, and conclusion. Construction activities are increasing day by day. So for larger and complex structure where soil have poor bearing capacity, we need to rely on deep foundation systems like pile foundations, and the current design methods lack uniformity with substantial differences across different standards and local engineering practice. So this is because the complex nature and heterogeneous nature of the soil conditions. So if we go back to the analysis methods, we have to rely on the static methods, and if you see, because of complex nature of soil, it is difficult to accurately determine the strength and deformation parameters of soil, such as shear strength, angle of friction, and coefficient of earth pressure. So small errors in these parameters lead to large errors in calculation of the capacity of the soil. So second parameter is the empirical correlations, like different empirical factors that generally we use, that is adhesion factor and bearing capacity factors. They are empirical in nature. So we have to rely on the local experience. So this also creates errors in the ultimate capacity of the soil. Then installation effects means effect of changing properties of the soils during
pile during operation is not taken into account in the static formulas, that also can lead to the actual pile capacity determination. Then third problem is of a layered soil. If the soil is layered form, then it is difficult to model this soil, that is skin friction parameters and bearing friction parameters. That is challenging. Then critical depth, that many of the methods impose critical depth on skin friction and end friction in cohesionless soil, and this may not reflect the reality of the soil. Then secondly, we rely on the dynamic formulas, and challenge in the dynamic formula is the strain rate effect. Means generally no, in dynamic formula, dynamic resistance is considered, which is not same as that of static capacity. So we require dynamic soil parameters like a damping of the soil, so which is difficult to determine accurately. So heavily and this is influenced, and damping of the soil influenced by the driving operation, pile driving operation. Then uncertainty in the energy, like actual energy delivered on the pile head by the hammer, that may be the different, and that is uncertain, and that is actually input to the dynamic formula. So and generally these dynamic formulas are easier in case of a granular soil where the damping is less. But for cohesive soil or very stiff or dense soil, this dynamic formula may not give the actual capacity of the soil. So again, mobilization, limited mobilization means dynamic test may not mobilize the full static capacity, specifically in stiff and dense soil. Then we have to rely on the field tests like static load test and dynamic load test. So the major parameter means we have to means large cost and time is required to perform these tests, and again limited number of tests also. And again the definition, calculation of the capacity from this test means there are many methods to define the ultimate capacity, and from the load settlement curve, and these different methods can yield the different ultimate capacities. So that is again a problematic situation, and many of the times courts use the static test as a primary one, and dynamic test as an accepted for quality control by verification of the static load capacity. And again there are for dynamic load test, if we go, then we need to calibrate it, that dynamic load test, and sometimes there will be a overestimation of the capacity just because of if the calibration is not done properly, or if the damping parameters of the soils are not characterized properly. Then if we go, and again we cannot replace, we have to rely on the static load test only, means again many times code is relying on that. Then next slide is related to yes, okay. That is a negative skin friction, and again in negative skin friction also we have to rely on the that is a neutral plane, means location of the neutral plane, that is critical depth. That is again sensitive parameter, and it is directly depends upon the relative stiffness of the pile and soil applied for loads, depends upon applied service loads and stiffness of the soil tips. Again that position of the neutral plane is a variable, like we have to rely on the empirical factors and complexity of time dependent and group effects. This is related, again one more important point is related to group effect, means efficiency of the pile as a single pile and efficiency of the piles in group, that will be different. Means if means for center of the pile that will be different, for corner of the pile that will be different, so that will lead to the conservative designs. So we have to create more empirical relations, like then again advanced solution like finite element methods, they may model the soil accurately, but we need to give input parameters. Again last, now we have to rely on the static methods and like that, and but our code, that is IS 2911, doesn't explicitly say whether the single pile is to be used, but it gives a stability check instead of that. Means it should either clearly say whether to use or whether not to use, but code is relying on the checks. Then international codes like Eurocode, they are using the limit state methods, partial safety factory, but our code is relies on one global safety factor that is based upon the WSM philosophy. Means we can say that it is prescriptive and depends upon empirical formulas and mold field test. Means in future code should